So how far back do we know? Like, what is prehistory before culture-wise? Like, how far back do we know the evolution culturally? And then, obviously, we have a pretty fair grasp of evolution, like where we actually came from. How far do we know? What's prehistory for us as far as the evolution of culture in humans?
I guess anything before we have records of what we did and what our life was like would be prehistory, and it depends on how far we want to go back. We can go back all the way to when what we call modern humans first arose, which is about 200,000 years ago. We can go further back to when we shared an ancestor with Neanderthals. That was about 500,000 years ago, or back to when we split from our closest living relatives, chimps, which was 6 to 8 million years ago. So. But going back 200,000 years ago, what we know about that is from combination of genetics and archaeology. So whatever human remains we can find, skeletal remains we can find, like the fossils out there, we can compare them to modern humans and see that, they're actually, we consider them modern humans. But then looking at the genetics, so when we look at genomes from humans throughout the world, we can work out when and where humans dispersed, so we can reconstruct the global pattern of movement of humans. And this a lot of these happened way before any recorded history.
Okay, cool. And we can also, with the genetic makeup of humans today, we can also go back and look at like where there was inbreeding, right? So like with Neanderthals and other humans, do we have, I'm going down a strange tangent straight off the bat, but do we have genetic code of, so we talk about Neanderthals, but there was many more sorts of humans 200,000 years ago, right? Like 5 or 6 species of humans. Am I
a few species of humans. Yeah. So one of the things that's really revolutionized our understanding of humans in the past few years has been genome data. So I guess I should start by explaining what a genome is. So a genome is like I guess a good analogy that's often used is like a book of instructions, right? So it's a book of instructions that contains all the instructions for building a human or whatever species.
Yeah, idiot's guide to building a person.
So
don't you just bang a chick?
So, well, that's the like what happens in practice. But
hard sometimes.
It's hard to some.
But on paper, the book contains all the instructions, and what happens is that this book gets copied over time. And each time it gets copied, mistakes get made. These are mutations. And over time, these mutations build up, and eventually you'll see changes in whatever the book of instructions produces, right? And so the more different... So we've got genomes from, I think, tens of thousands of humans now, like modern humans, and some Neanderthals, and also some other of these ancient humans. And by comparing these, we can work out when we had an ancestor with them, whether we share any of their DNA, and where we might have interacted with them. So one of the really exciting things that came out when the Neanderthal genome was sequenced was that everyone outside Africa shares a few percent of DNA with Neanderthals. So there must have been some sort of interbreeding with Neanderthals when humans left Africa, since humans left Africa.
So when you talk about, because I always hear about, obviously there's certain parts of the world that have more percentage of Neanderthal genome in their DNA in the genome, whatever, whichever way. Obviously, I'm not a scientist. But so...
More DNA than Neanderthal.
Yeah.
Adventure radio.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm like 50% Neanderthal.
Bag a chick.
But so these other humans, so the humans that we basically, as far as I am aware, we basically killed off. So how come they don't get mentioned like Neanderthals do? Like, was there lots of interbreeding with, surely they're closer to us than Neanderthals, these other species of humans? What were they called? Did we breed with them? What happened to those guys?
No, Neanderthals would have been the closest, because we shared an ancestor with Neanderthals only about 500,000 years ago, which is pretty recent on the kind of Earth's timescale. But there were... So I guess Neanderthals are pretty well known because there's a lot of remains. We know that they lived throughout like Eurasia, Europe and parts of Asia. And some of these other humans, we don't really have much trace of them. Like you might have heard of the Hobbit in Southeast Asia. Yep. And
tell me they're real.
Well, so with the Hobbit, this Hobbit genome, the Hobbit human, we haven't been able to get DNA out of it. So we don't know what the relationships of that Hobbit was to other humans.
Oh, really?
So it could have just been a dwarf.
Well, some people thought it was like a disease, but I think it does seem like this ancient human that managed to survive.
It was a...
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And then why can't we get the genome? Because it's
too hot.
The remains are too cooked.
Yeah, it's just too hot because, what happens is that DNA breaks down. So So normally when we're alive, our DNA gets attacked all the time. There's mutations in our DNA all the time, but we have things that repair that DNA. But when we die, those repair mechanisms stop working, and the DNA just breaks down over time. So, and the hotter it is, the worse that becomes. And so the best way to get DNA over a long period of time, surviving a long period of time, is in the ice. But where the Hobbit lives, it's just way too hot.
Gotcha.
Oh, yeah.
So when we talk about because I read a book recently that talked about I think it was The Sixth Extinction. I don't know if you've heard of that book. And it talks about what humans are doing to other the planet and other species all around the planet. It also talks about like what we've done to our own kin, which is obviously Neanderthals and all the other human species. So if Neanderthals were our closest cousin, so in these other human species that were around 200,000 years ago, who were they? How close were they to us? And what are the theories behind like why they're not around anymore?
Yeah, so I guess we're finding out new things all the time. Every few weeks there's a new genome published, and it kind of changes our ideas of which species we interacted with and how we migrated throughout the world. Mm-hmm. And one of the interesting ones is the Denisovans, and these were it was almost like a type of Neanderthal, but these are only known from a few teeth and a finger bone from a cave in Siberia. Jeez. Yeah, so it's really we don't really have much physical evidence of these, but when they sequenced the genome of this Denisovan, it turned out that actually Denisovans contributed their DNA just to Melanesians, which include Aboriginal Australians. So only some humans carry that DNA, and more recently, some East Asians are found to carry some of that DNA as well. So the way we interacted with these is not really well known, just because we don't have many remains of these things, and we don't really know where they were found throughout the world. I mean, like these Denisovans only been found in one place so far.
So when you say Denisovans, and you said that you had part of the jawbone, did you say some teeth, jawbone, and a finger?
Finger bone, yeah.
So, but you're able to get the genome out of those remains, and you're able to say, okay, this is where it differs in the DNA. So that's how you're able to actually say there was a fork in the road here. This is a different species of humans.
Yeah, that's right.
It's not just like one genetic mutation of a Neanderthal or a Homo sapien. It's a you can tell.
Yeah, the overall difference. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Fascinating. So what happened when? Because Neanderthals, everybody has that typical picture of a Neanderthal. They have big, brutish, strong, short, stocky. People obviously associate being dumber than humans, but we're the ones that made it through. Right? We killed them off, and we did, whatever we did to do that. What's the most recognised theory, or what's your theory on why the stronger, quicker, more agile, you would think, Neanderthals who weren't super dumb, why didn't they make it through instead of us? How were we able to be the ones that are sitting here today?
Yeah, so Neanderthals were really strong. So you might have heard that like the strongest man alive today would have been weaker than the average Neanderthal.
Yeah.
Like way weaker.
Yeah.
But it's really to do with intelligence, right? So modern humans, we had these mutations, and we're able to evolve this higher intelligence, and that would have been a big advantage over just simple physical strength, and that would have enabled us to outcompete these Neanderthals.
Discovery Roger, go for deploy.